create a simple task list manager. We'll keep the structure simple. We'll have a client file and a server file. The client emits a command event for the server, and the server emits a response event for the client. We'll make it support 4 commands: help to display the list of commands, ls to list the current tasks, add to add a new task, and delete to delete a task. To get started, I created a client.js file and a server.js file. We'll need to require the event emitter in both of them. In client.js, we need to read input from the user. For that, I'm going to use the Readline module. To use the Readline module, we create an interface with the input and output streams. And let's just use process standard in and process standard out. The client event emitter is going to be a simple one. There isn't a lot of logic in here. So instantiating an object directly from the event emitter should be okay. The server, on the other hand, is going to have some logic. So I'm going to create a class that extends event emitter, and I'll export an instance of that class. In the client file, we'll import this server object. However, since we're doing two-way communication here, the client and the server need access to each other. The client is going to emit events to the server, and the server is going to listen to those events. And the inverse is true as well. So in client.js, we have access to the server object because we just required it. We can do the same for the client, but another way we can do that is to make server.js exports a function and execute this function here with the client as an argument. So this allows us to go in server.js, and in here, assume that we have a function instead of just an object. This function is going to receive the client, and we can potentially instantiate the server object with the client object. So now in the server class, we can define the constructor function, and that constructor function is going to receive the client. Back in the client.js, let's go ahead and use the readline interface. We can register a listener for the line event, which receives an input. So just to test that, let's go ahead and log this input line. We can test this with node client.js, and it's listening to the input and echoing it back. So now that we have access to input from the user, we can use the client to communicate this input to the server. So we can do client.emit the input, for example. Input is input. So now every time the user hits enter, the client is going to emit an input event to the server. So the idea here is to run this, we're going to do something like help here, and that would be the command for the server. In fact, let's name this event command instead of input to make it more clear. So to test all this, in server.js, let's go ahead and listen to any command event from the client. So on command, we're going to receive the command. We'll have a function here to do something with the command. I'm going to console log it for now, so we can test. Command is add. Perfect. So the commands that we want to implement are help, add, ls, and delete. Let's implement the first command. I'm going to create an instance method here for every command, and every one of them is going to emit a response named event. So for now, we'll do placeholders and copy help for add, ls, and delete. And to make sure we're only executing those supported commands, I'm going to do a switch statement here on the command, and inside here, I'll list all the supported commands. And for these supported commands, we're going to go ahead and execute them. So I'll pick the command and execute it. And for the default case, this would be an unknown command. So I'm going to go ahead and emit a response object here and say something like unknown command. So now inside the client file, we're emitting the command to the server, and the server is going to emit a response event. So what we need to do here now is to listen to that response event. So server on response, the listener here is going to be a function, and this function gets access to the response string. Let's just console log the response. So I think we can actually test all that. Help, add, delete, ls, and something unknown. Perfect. I'm going to do a trick here to make this more user-friendly. So basically we write this string, which is a special command that will clear the terminal. Then we write the response, and then we write a prompt to receive other commands. So now when we test this, it will be something like help says help, and then receives another command, add, response with add, and it receives another command. So we should probably also do the same on the initialization of the server and instruct the user to type a command. Instead of doing it here manually, we can have the server respond with an initial response that says type a command. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Right after we initialize, we're going to do this dot emit response, and in here say something like type a command help to list all commands. However, this is not going to work for a very important reason. It's all about the sequence of what's happening. This line is going to be executed when we execute this line. So our handler for the response event would not be defined yet. To fix this problem, we can wrap this call in a process.nextTick. So in here, we'll do process.nextTick, have a function, and in this function, we'll do this .emit response, type a command, it's process.nextTick. Let's test now. Things are working. Type a command, help to list command, help, add, an unknown command. Perfect. Now that we have the structure of this communication between the client and the server, implementing those commands are actually easy. The help command will just emit a string. Available commands are add, ls, or delete. The add command, on the other hand, is going to need to receive some arguments. We're going to say add something. So right now we don't have arguments. We're actually calling this with an empty argument. And we're only receiving command here. So we can either process the command for its arguments in here or process it on the client side, which makes more sense to me. So I will initialize a command and arguments variables. Inside the line listener, I'm going to make the command and the rest of the arguments to be read from input when I split it on space. This way, the first token of this input is going to be the command, and the rest of the arguments will be in the args variable. So let's pass both the command and the args to the emitted event. Perfect. So now inside server.js, we will have access to a command and an array of arguments. And let's pass this array of arguments to every command we execute. So now we do have a list of arguments, so let's just test by responding with that list of arguments and joining it back with a string. So we can test that. If we do add hello there, it will display back hello there. Perfect. So the rest of the implementation here is purely JavaScript. So let me do it quick and fast forward. And let me review what I did. So I added a tasks object to hold the tasks information, a task ID to hold a unique counter for every new task. In the add method, we just add the new task to the tasks object, emit a response for the user that the task was added. For the delete method, we delete the task using whatever ID the user types in and give the user feedback that the task was deleted. And the ls method is going to use this new tasks string method to display the tasks. This is just a friendly output for the tasks object. We just loop over the keys, and for every key we return a string with the task information and then joining everything with a new line. So this is the final product. Let's go ahead and test it. Node client. We have a help command which lists all the available commands, add task, ls, and delete. Let's add a few tasks. Do this, add, do that. You'll see the feedback that tasks are added. We can list the tasks and we can delete a task. So let's delete one and list the tasks after that. We only have 2.